All right, so this video went viral this week. It is very sad. This is a woman who just had her chemo cut off by her health insurance company.
A letter from my health insurance company, and the timing. Oh, the timing is just incredible, because what this letter says is, you are receiving this explanation of benefits because we will not pay for one of or more of the services that you received. We will not pay. And the thing that they will not pay for is one chemo session that costs $15,000. And I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping it's a mistake, because my doctor confirmed that I got approval from my insurance company before I started the chemo. And I've been on it for a few months now, so I don't know why suddenly one session would not be covered. It's not even the $15,000 that really scares me. What I'm afraid of is that maybe the insurance company suddenly decided that they're not going to cover the treatments anymore, right? So like they just suddenly made that decision and there's nothing I can do about it. The ones in September were like a hot mess. I have tumors all over my spine. But the biggest one was actually the one that caused my fracture, and it came out of the bony part of the vertebra and actually protruded into the spinal cavity. And like, if this is my spinal cord, right, which is like, it runs all down your back and controls functions from like your brain all the way down to your toes. The tumor had actually gotten to the point where it was touching the spinal cord, like just barely touching it. And if it kept growing and started pushing on the spinal cord, that would have caused immense pain and nerve damage and who knows what. I might have lost the ability to walk, the ability to like control my bladder and bowels, like who knows. And damage to your spinal cord is irreversible. Like there's no fixing that. But thankfully, the December scans showed that the tumor had actually shrunk and retreated just barely, like still in the spinal cavity, but not touching the spinal cord. So there is some space now. We're talking millimeters, like literally millimeters between me being able to like walk and live relatively normally and being paralyzed, I don't know. And honestly, this letter feels like a threat. It feels like my life is being threatened, and saying we will not pay for your life-saving treatment feels like a threat on my life. And I feel like in this country, we have a right to self-defense when someone is threatening your life.
Okay. Margaret Kimberly, why Luigi has a following. Yeah, you'll get these hysterical headlines from the Wall Street Journal and the Free Press about how sick people are. Well, no, they're not. No, they're not. And Luigi didn't do nothing, by the way. Falsely accused man. Our friend Jimmy Dore here responded to this. Health insurance is a scam. 100 million Americans have medical debt. Health insurance adds zero value to your health care. A 55-year-old couple in California earning $120,000 a year pays $38,000 a year before copays to an insurance company that adds zero value to their health care. After paying $38,000, the insurance company then routinely denies you treatment and refuses to cover your doctor-prescribed procedures. This is not a healthcare system. It's an extortion racket. Eliminating the insurance parasites and switching to Medicare for all would save them $20,000 a year after the increase in taxes to pay for Medicare for all. 68% of Americans are for Medicare for all, yet Congress has never, ever debated it, let alone voted on implementing it, because the health insurance parasites have bribed our politicians to do their bidding at the expense of the citizens. Yes, exactly. Here's another video that's going viral. And this was shared out by Wall Street Apes, which tends to lean kind of MAGA, which tells you you are losing everybody at this point on this system.
Got a little letter in the mail today from our insurance company. Our insurance company is Cigna Healthcare. So Cigna, I hope you have a TikTok because I'm about to blast the shit out of you. Step number 1, our deductible is almost $10,000 a year. Okay, that's not your fault. Well, it is your fault because you just run a fucking scam. Step number 2, my son is battling cancer. Childhood cancer, was diagnosed last year at the age of 9. We have to drive 3.5 hours to the closest children's hospital, okay? It's phenomenal. The best hospital we have ever been to. The oncologist team, the oncology team is phenomenal. We love it so much. He has received his whole care there, right? He's in maintenance mode, meaning he's done the hardest part, and now we just have to keep going for the next 5 years. And he's still on chemotherapy. He still goes once a month. Well, you sent me this lovely paper today telling me that Tenet Health they want to charge too much. And so we can't renew our contract with them. So you can find a different hospital in Tucson, though. Tucson, that's where the closest in-network hospital is now going to be for you. Oh, by the way, we're going to offer you a community care application that you can fill out. It's only going to take about 55 hours for you to fill out, and that will extend your care if he has ongoing care for 90 days, okay? But that's the best we can do, all right? Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm just a little confused. Back it up. I already pay almost $800 a month, sometimes more, comes out of my husband's paycheck to have your health care insurance, plus our deductible, okay? Plus the deductible that we have to pay every year, $10,000 off the top. And now you're telling me that the team that has been treating my son from the very beginning, that helped find his cancer diagnosis and saved his life, can no longer be his doctor because you guys are so fucking greedy that you don't want to partner with him anymore. So now I have to figure it out. I have to uproot my son, who is already battling cancer, because you guys need a little bit more money. And we say America is the greatest country on earth. We love it so much, don't we?
Now, according to this post, she's 6 to 7 hour drive away from Tucson. So she's going to have to take her son with cancer 6 to 7 hours to get treatment. That's probably not going to be as good as what he's getting. So Brianna responded to this. Any politicians talking about healthcare reform and not Medicare for all at this stage are not to be taken seriously. Well, I'll show you somebody who's not talking about it. Janet Mills. Janet Mills up in Maine, Chuck Schumer's hand-picked challenger to Graham Plattner. What does she say? This is kind of the code for Democrats to not piss off insurance companies and pretend they're going to help you. Whether it's capping the cost of insulin or expanding access to health care. Not Medicare for all, expanding access to health care. I'm fighting hard to lower health care costs for Maine families. So you have access to it. You might not be able to afford it, but you have access to it. Now, of course, her opponent, Plattner, is running on Medicare for all. How's that working out for him? Oh, guys busted fucking a rooster in Cambodia, and he's still blowing her out by 20 points.
Graham Plattner here.
Graham Plattner is leading Janet Mills by 20 points in a new Maine Democratic primary poll for U.S. Senate conducted November 14th, 18th. Recent poll. They've thrown everything at this guy. And look at him. He's blowing her out by 20 points. I'm sure that is one of the reasons. People have gotten wise to this. People are sick of this. Expand access to health care. They know what that means. That means nothing changes. From the lever, a majority of Americans now support Medicare for all, even if it ends private insurance and raises taxes. The tipping point is here because the ACA is failing to keep health care affordable. New polling shows a 50-point shift in just 6 years. So this poll has been making the rounds. It's from Data for Progress. A majority, 63%, support a Medicare for All system that would eliminate most private insurance plans, replace premiums with higher taxes, guarantee health coverage for everyone, eliminate most out-of-pocket costs like copays and deductibles. Now, they did ask the question a few different ways. Would you support Medicare for All that would cover all Americans, replace most private health insurance plans? Okay, so all likely voters, 65%, Democrats, 78, Independents, 71, Republicans, 49, a plurality, 43% oppose. You know, in the end, man, it's all fun and games until your wife's dying of cancer. It's not so funny anymore. Voters support Medicare for All, even after hearing it would eliminate most private insurance and raise taxes. So if you frame it that way, support drops minimally to 63 from 65. Very little change. This was the real interesting part of this, because they hit them with the arguments from the other side to see what that would do. Supporters of Medicare for All say it would ensure everyone can get the care they need and save families money by eliminating premiums, deductibles, and copays. Opponents of Medicare for All say it would raise taxes and give the government too much control over the healthcare system. With this in mind, do you support or oppose Medicare for All? That brings it down to 58. Republicans, 43, and that tilts it a little bit. Still a very strong number from Republicans. Framed that way, 51% oppose. So you get a bare majority that oppose if you phrase it that way. So this is all, of course, taking place as they're debating even extending the subsidies on Obamacare. And as they will tend to do, they deflect. When Trump's been asked about this, oh, Obamacare just enriches the insurance companies. Yeah, that is the problem with Obamacare. You're absolutely right. What's their solution? They want to give you health savings accounts that won't even begin to cover the copays. And where's that money from the health savings account going to go? It's going to go to the insurance company.
Of course.
It's just a way of giving you a lower subsidy that maybe you can just not spend on the subsidy, which I would wager a lot of people are going to do, and they're just going to go without health insurance until they get bankrupted by healthcare. This does not exist in any other country on earth. I was talking about this because travel medicine is really not covered. I don't know how it is in other countries. A vaccine for Japanese encephalitis here would be $1,200. In Thailand, it's $30. It's $30. We're the richest country on earth. Why is that $30 in Thailand? And that carries over to the entire system. This is why you are propagandized and distracted day and night and day and night and day and night. You are being literally murdered by this system. You are being murdered by this government. You are being murdered by these insurance companies that own these politicians, including Democrats. Yeah, just like you have more at this point anti-war people who are Republicans than Democrats. Yeah, you have more Medicare for All advocates that are Democrats. I don't know of any Republicans that support Medicare for All, but it doesn't mean the party as a whole supports that kind of reform. Look what Schumer just did, picking Janet Mills to run against Plattner. Why? Like what was so disqualifying about Plattner? I promise you that's part of it. That's part of it. This entire political system serves wealth. Those insurance companies have a lot of wealth. They have big lobbies, and they spend a lot of money on these political candidates. They'll throw you crumbs. They'll nibble around the edge like Obamacare did. But unless people get organized and take to the street and scare the living shit out of them legally, non-violently, of course, we mean, they're just going to let you die, man. They're just going to let you die. But at this point, it's become so obvious that these facile arguments that we had back in 2016 during the ugly Bernie Hillary primaries, where you had all these libs talking about how we have to be practical and it takes time, and people can't argue that anymore, because now it's coming for the middle class and the upper middle class. They can't afford health insurance anymore. It's finally coming for those people. That's why you've had a total collapse in this debate around what if it raises taxes? People finally realize if you don't do something to get rid of this system, you're going to die.
Well, it doesn't matter if it raises taxes. Look, you as you know, someone who pays a decent amount of taxes now, because we're lucky enough to be doing okay with the show here, right? To actually earn a somewhat middle class existence. I can tell you the amount does not bother me. It's what little I get for it that bothers me, and I think most people understand that, right? I think most people understand that. Hey, the bill that comes due from the IRS is not the issue. The issue is that all that money goes towards genocide in Gaza and agitating for World War III in Ukraine, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
the problem
That
that
they
I
have
think a lot
money
of people
for.
see
Yep.
through, right? And we have reached a tipping point. What the lever wrote was absolutely right. We've reached all kinds of tipping points. When things get this severe, it becomes obvious. Whether it's a matter of war and peace, or foreign policy, or just economic inequality, this is the natural trajectory of capitalism, is to create an obscenely wealthy aristocracy and masses of either impoverished people or people who are just straddling the line,
Right.
to the point where even middle class people can't like buy a
Right.
house now. You can't buy a house on a middle class income.
Right.
It's just not doable.
No.
So
you
what
have
is
to
that
go
gonna?
out to the boonies. You have to go out to the middle of nowhere, which, unless you have remote work, is not possible.
Right, you can't do. Right, exactly. So what is going to happen? Political will is going to change pretty drastically, and that's what's happened around this issue now. And this is what has happened around all sorts of issues. But Medicare for All being one of the leading indicators, because it was already extremely popular. And yeah, people were able to obfuscate and propagandize around the practicality, and you want to have private insurance as a backup, blah, 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 right? This whole conversation happened on the Democratic side of the aisle. They were able to psyop people into voting against Medicare for All, both in 2016 and in 2020. And of course, a lot of the Democrats who are now coming out for it, Chris Van Hollen being the latest one, silent about it when Joe Biden was in power. This is
Bernie
now
too.
Bernie too. This is now a winning issue in both a primary and a general, because popular will is a very powerful thing. And this is what people have to understand. And this is why it's important, in all seriousness, not to fall into, not to fall into Luigi-like tactics, because all that does is empower a fascist backlash. When after the killing of Brian Thompson, Steve Bannon summoned a lot of the tech overlords, and he told them, Max Blumenthal talked about this a few months ago on Chris Hedges, this is a very teachable story. He summons all of these tech oligarchs, and he says, see how the peasants are getting really rowdy. See what they did to this health insurance CEO? We can protect you from the rowdy mobs once social instability reaches dangerous levels, which it will. Right? So what did he do? He used that as a pretext to rally tech oligarchs behind a fascist right-wing agenda. Right? So that's the effect of that. That's why that's counterproductive in the end. When you have popular will on your side, you can do a lot organizationally. You don't have to resort to violent tactics that are just going to invite a fascist crackdown, which nullifies all of your political will because you're all dead or in dungeons, right? So people have to understand, like, this year has been a very transformative year in a lot of ways, many of which have been negative, but some of which have been positive, because you're seeing a sort of awakening that you would not have seen had Kamala Harris won. These conversations around Medicare for All would not be happening had she won. That would have just been a continuation of the ACA, which is, I think, has a lot to do with, by the way, this whole conversation around will the subsidies be extended or not. I think that has a lot to do with what's driving these numbers, because people are saying, hey, as long as these insurance companies are empowered in this way, then our healthcare is really dependent on the whims of whoever oversees the system. Whereas the only way to truly safeguard our healthcare is to take these insurance companies out of it altogether, at which point the government must then be the single payer. Because in countries where we see the government is the single payer, even in a country like France, where you have a sort of neoliberal, piece of shit ruling over that country now, notice he can't fuck with their health care without them going out in the streets. Like, that's just an untouchable thing once the government is in control of it. They can't take it away. That's why, mark my words, they are going to pay a tremendous political price for not renewing these subsidies if they don't figure out how to renew these subsidies.
They're insane.
That's why
it's maybe the most politically suicidal thing I've ever seen a political party do.
Exactly, and that's exactly why, because it's one of the ironclad rules of governance is that you can't take an entitlement away that you've given. Once the government gives you something, they can't take it back without paying a tremendous price. So that's all the more reason to just go all the way, get rid of these insurance companies altogether, make this a public investment, because once the public is invested in it, there's political hell to pay for then divesting from it. And I think people now understand that. And this is, how many times have we said this on this show? People who are tuned in the way we are always say these things 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years before the public catches up.
That's the gig.
That's the gig.
Being a Cassandra is the gig.
That's the gig. That's the gig. Exactly. But it is good to see it back in the conversation, because it really disappeared. And when did it disappear? It disappeared when the Democrats were in power.
Please clap.